It is said that these beings committed a great sin. They mated with the woman of the earth and brought forth a hybrid species, combined with human DNA and the DNA of the gods. They were known as the Nephilim, and this hybrid mix was to rule in their stead. Although there's also much speculation as to the consideration that these beings committed a far greater sin that could have been far more sinister, such as genetically manipulating other species, including the human race. And in the book of Enoch, when Enoch is implying that these beings were sinning against animals, it implies genetic manipulation as well. It is also said that these beings transformed Homo erectus into what we know today as Homo sapiens, and that these beings have ruled the planet Earth for centuries.
And God said, let us make man in our image, after our likeness. Now granted, in Genesis 1, this question of the our, I mean, God is meant to be singular, right? The Israelites are meant to be a monotheistic tribe, right? So what's this our concept? What is this our phraseology? That alone is interesting, but even more interesting for me is the statement itself, that us make man in our image. Well, first of all, this implies that man was already in existence, because the real Hebrew translation, I mean the original Hebrew, does not say let us make man, it actually says let us remake man. This can be confirmed by anyone who talks to a rabbi about the original translation. Let us remake man. So it implies that man was already created perfect. He was already in the world. When the gods are saying we shall make man in our image, this implies genetic hybridization, because in fact these visitors from other planets were thoroughly technologically advanced and had completely grasped and understood the whole mechanics and art and mystery of genetics.
And not all of the Anunnaki are 9 feet tall. They were human enough that we are related to them and they're related to us. And that lovely little story in chapter 6 of Genesis is quite true. They did indeed engineer the genes and chromosomes of an existing species on this planet. God knows how long ago. Sitchin says it was 200,000 years. The information I have learned indicates that one of the major tweaking took place about 60,000 years ago. That Homo sapiens sapiens was tweaked and genetically manipulated even more.
This passage concerning the giants states that they were in the earth in those days, which refers to the days before the flood and the time of Noah. The reasoning behind this deluge is believed to have occurred in part due to the Nephilim and their activities and interruptions on the earth. As the result of their activities, people became sinister as well. It is said that the Nephilim, who had intercourse with the daughters of men and produced children of their own, were exceedingly evil, and that they reigned on the earth before this flood. And when this passage says, and after that, it implies that these giants were still in the earth after the flood, and may still be at large even today. We are told that these beings existed long before the world as we know it came into being, and that these beings broke the universal law and interfered with the people of the earth. Although the flood occurred, it did not rid the world of these giants, and we see a second interruption of these beings after the flood, when they came in unto the daughters of men. Most of the women that these beings impregnated died as the result of not being able to sustain these giants in their wombs. Interestingly enough, in the ancient world, we find mixtures of half animal and half human hybrids. There are gods depicted with the heads of animals. So could this be symbolic of something, or is this depicting the genetic engineering that the gods were performing?
From the Babylonian legend of creation, man with bodies of birds of the deserts, human beings with the faces of ravens. These the gods created, and in the earth the gods created for them a dwelling. In the midst of the earth they grew up and became great and increased in number. And somebody might say, well, look, if these beings were created, how come we don't see them walking down Main Street today? Well, that's because they were phased out. And remember, you cross alien DNA with any life form, even a reptile, you will have two types of reptilian. Those who look more humanoid, so much so perhaps to be imperceptible. And those are ones you could in fact walk past in the street and think that they're humanoid. And then you have the other kind who are clearly reptoid. Well, according to the myths and legends, those beings were out and about and walking down Main Street up until around the medieval period, the Middle Ages. In fact, it was customary, was it not, for a hero to prove his prowess. The legends tell us you had to go and knock on the door of some such being and kill it, behead it, and wear that symbol on the shield for the rest of your life to prove your manhood. So these beings were very much visible at some time, and then at some point, probably as we moved into our industrial age, they were phased out. And as the legend of creation is saying here, perhaps the more reptilian beings were put inside the earth, hidden away in caves and underground cities.